So today is an extremely exciting and well-awaited day for me in my life. Today I am finally having the test done to basically make sure that I definitely have Aspergers, or I'm on the spectrum of autism, whatever you guys are familiar with. It's really exciting for me, and I wanted to kind of document this process to show my viewers that it can be very exciting to know the extent as to what you are, I guess. My dog, stop. How your brain works and why it's okay to be different. It's about 2 hours. I don't know what to expect. My therapist is going to be there. I am paying for this test as well. It's about $500 that I am paying for this, but it's extremely important to me. So, but yeah, I will see you guys this afternoon. So I just got back from taking the test. I've changed shirts because I'm quite hot here beside the fire, but it was only about an hour's time and there were 2 people assessing me. There was someone asking the questions and there was another person writing down things. They just said to not notice her, pretend she's not there. So I have no idea what she was watching. Was it my behavior? I don't know. It was just like very quiet and everything was just like based on what I was answering. The test was like a mix between asking me questions about my life and also doing these weird little puzzle kind of things. So I had to do a couple of like puzzles. I had to do a little memory thing and then stand up and speak and then create a story with these random little objects, things like that. I'm not sure what they were checking for in those, but that was like kind of weird. I was a lot more comfortable when I was answering questions about myself. She was just asking me a lot about like what my friends are like, what scares me, what makes me happy, what makes me sad, going to the beach, things like that. She was asking me about just all aspects of my life, and I tried to provide as much detail as I could from the time I could remember to now. I thought that I was going to find out the results today, but I've been taking a series of tests for the past maybe 3 months now. They're basically going to put together all of these test answers and try and find a diagnosis basically. I don't have an answer today, but in a couple weeks I will, and I will get back to you guys and talk about my experience a little bit more. Hey guys, so the results are, drumroll please, I have Aspergers. We basically knew that anyway, but a proper diagnosis was needed. Yeah, I basically am on the autistic spectrum. The term Aspergers is no longer used now. What it will say on my medical records now is that I am on the autistic spectrum. So I do not have autism. There was a fine distinction. I do not have autism, but I am on the autistic spectrum. And if the term Aspergers did exist, I would have been diagnosed with Aspergers. So what that means is I do not maybe exhibit signs that, you know, something is off, but for me, the internal view for me is very, very different. Basically, the psychologist did say that I do a very good job at masking what I feel. She can tell that I am like quite uncomfortable with people. She said that I do a very good job, so that's probably why a lot of people in my life have been like, what? No, you don't have anything wrong with you. So I'm just gonna give you guys like a quick rundown as to how it was diagnosed, why it was diagnosed, and what I feel personally. So this is like very raw. When I was a child, I was probably about 5 when I knew that something was different. I felt different compared to my other classmates. I had just started school, and that's when I felt this kind of barrier between me and the people around me and my friends, and it was something that I couldn't express. As a child, it was diagnosed as anxiety and not being able to kind of communicate that well. Yes, I was re-diagnosed with anxiety within this test that I had for the Asperger's, so that is definitely still there, but it kind of stopped there when I was a child. It was kind of just seen as she has anxiety, end of. But my mum knew that there was something quite different. My brother was a heart child. He was born with a heart condition, and so nurses were always coming in and out of our homes to check on him, and my mum would say, don't look at him, like, he's fine, it's her that needs the help. And so my mum was very aware that something was off. At a young age, it was brought forth to my mum's attention that I might have Aspergers, and so she kind of dived into reading all about Aspergers in children and things like that. As a child, I had routines for everything, specifically even walking. I had a clear-cut routine that I would walk and I would come to the oven, and the oven was like a mirror. It kind of had a mirror surface, and so I would like say something to myself in the mirror and then walk back the exact same way. And my mum has told me in recent months that I just never moved off that routine until she directed me, like, oh look, there's another way you can learn to walk. And that's basically how I've always lived my life. If I don't have a routine in my life, I feel extremely overwhelmed, and like, it's just the way it has to be. It's not an OCD thing, like if I don't do this routine, something bad will happen. It's not that, it's just the way it always is. I just have to have a routine in my life, and that was there from day dot until now, and will be there for the rest of my life. Growing up, I saw many therapists to try and help me with whatever problems I had going on. I was a very overwhelmed child, and I didn't know how to communicate. And in later years, my mum kind of said to me, you actually didn't tell me any of this. Like, I didn't know that you were feeling any of these feelings, and if you had told me, I could have helped you. I would always, and have always, like, as soon as I walk out the front door, I put on an act, because I find it extremely hard socializing and even being with friends. I find that very hard, and I don't want people to know that I have kind of this weird thing. I want people to feel comfortable around me, and so I put on this character, and I kind of like was speaking from a script. The psychiatrist basically picked up on this. So some of the things that they said to me was, for one, the tone of my voice. I apparently have like quite a monotone voice, and I don't really emphasize words, or there's no variation in my tone. That's something that they picked up on and was on the autistic spectrum. The second thing was, and I know so many of you are going to know about this, because as soon as I was told that I do this, I immediately thought of my YouTube videos, and that is my hand gestures. They picked up on the fact that I do a lot of hand gestures, but it's not so much in relation to the words I'm saying. So what I mean by that is I don't kind of emphasize how big something is or how small something is. It's just kind of random hand gestures, and they can tell that that's how I am able to think a lot clearer. But also the fact that my fingers are usually spread apart like this. I had two psychologists basically diagnosing me, and they got into a debate whether the spacing of my fingers was kind of random, or like, was it clear cut? You know what I mean? Like, was it just a random hand movement? And basically they came to the conclusion that yes, it was random, and yes, it was on the autistic spectrum, my hand movements. The routines that were there from when I was a child until now was a big thing as for being on the autistic spectrum and feeling overwhelmed. So I did multiple tests leading up to this final big test, and I did a test that was related to ruling out whether you were just like very sensitive to stimuli. Basically, I scored on that test like the most you could, so I'm the most overwhelmed when it comes to sensations, light, sound, touch, and that was another reason why I am on the autistic spectrum. Feeling this difference, this very clear difference between me and other people, was another reason. Another thing was like empathy levels. I kind of struggle to understand people a little bit, and I also struggle to read people's facial expressions. So what I mean by that is I kind of know angry, happy, and sad. And so if, say, my mum was not smiling, I would then assume like something was wrong. And so many times in my life I got into fights with her because I was like, what's wrong? Something's wrong. She would be like, why does there always have to be something wrong? And I'm like, because you don't look happy, you seem really upset. And it was because I couldn't kind of comprehend the facial expressions that caused a lot of issues for me, and that still does cause a lot of issues for me, because when I think someone's like not smiling, like a friend, I will try my best to make them happy, and they may not even be sad, but I just try very, very hard to make them smile so that it then tells my brain I'm doing something right, they're smiling, and I can relax a little bit. So it's very, very exhausting. I said to them, like, living is honestly extremely exhausting for me and has been my entire life. I have spent many years crying to my mum about how I didn't feel like I was meant to be born, because my brain was just too intense and too different. I never felt like I related to anybody, even when I had friends, even when I had people that were like close to me, I still felt this difference, and I knew that I wanted to feel more for these people, but I just could never feel that. And it was hard existing and hard seeing that difference every single day, and especially growing older and seeing how other girls my age are acting and wondering why that wasn't the case for me. You know, it's been a very, very long road to this point. After getting that diagnosis, it was a very emotional moment for both myself, my therapist, my mother, my family, because my entire life I've looked crazy to my family, and not that they've thought that I was crazy, but I thought that I was crazy, you know, compared to my younger brother who does not have Aspergers, who is not on the autistic spectrum. I seemed very, very troubled, and that was quite awful for me, for my self-esteem. The issues that I've had with my parents have I mean, it's been a long road, and there was no answers as to why I was like this, so I kind of just played the blaming game, you know. I'm just the crazy one, I'm just the one who's troubled and has this insane mind. And suddenly when there was this diagnosis, it kind of took a weight off my shoulders, and suddenly I wasn't this troubled kid. Suddenly I wasn't this bad friend or this bad daughter. Suddenly I was meant to be here on this earth. Suddenly I had a good heart. And I think what this diagnosis has allowed me to feel about myself is just acceptance. Acceptance for how I am, for how my brain is, and for what I am, really. I'm in the next few stages of moving into my first home by myself, and I don't know what that's going to look like. Am I going to have people over? Am I going to go out and socialize? You know, I don't know what that looks like, but suddenly I don't judge myself anymore for what I do decide. Suddenly I can put it back to, okay, well, my brain just can't handle this today, or my brain just doesn't work the same as everyone else's. And that has given me so much clarity and so much relief. I know a lot of people don't like labels, but for me, this label has changed my life. I appreciate you so much for watching this video, and for every single one of you who feels different and, you know, doesn't know what to do. Chase more answers. Honestly, if you want to know what's going on with your brain and why you feel this way, chase those answers, honestly, because the result could not be more rewarding for my life and is life-changing for me. And I just want to finish this video off by saying, you know, my nana was, I think, probably someone that had autism. In her final years, she saw something on the TV about Aspergers, and she knew when she saw it that she had Aspergers. But I think she had a lot more than just, you know, Aspergers. I believe that she really struggled with life, and because mental health was something that wasn't kind of encouraged to investigate and understand in her time, she never did anything about it. And she was 88 years old when she died, and I think how awful that must have been to feel so different to everyone around her. And I'm just so thankful that I live in this time period where I have the resources. And so my encouragement to you guys If you feel that there is something different between you and everybody else, chase those answers, whether your parents agree or not, whether anyone thinks you're different or not. If you feel something different, chase those answers. So with that, I hope you guys don't look at me as being any different. I'm probably going to be doing a lot more content about Aspergers or being on the autistic spectrum, and just sharing a bit more with you guys about that. But until then, I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.